Former England head coach Eddie Jones has never shied away from blunt assessments, and in the wake of England's heavy Six Nations defeat to Ireland, he admitted the experience stirred uncomfortable memories from his own turbulent tenure in charge. England's 42-21 loss to Ireland was not just another defeat. It was a bruising reminder of how quickly fortunes can shift at test level. Under Steve Borthwick, England had pieced together an impressive 12-match winning run prior to their Calcutta Cup reverse against Scotland. Optimism had been building. There was genuine talk that the tournament finale against France could evolve into a Grand Slam decider point. 2 consecutive defeats have changed that narrative entirely. Now, instead of momentum and momentum-fueled belief, England face renewed scrutiny. Their title hopes are hanging by a thread, and Borthwick, once widely praised for restoring direction, finds himself back under familiar pressure. For Jones, watching events unfold from the outside brought back a flood of recognition. A feeling he knows too well. Speaking on a Rugby Unity podcast, Jones described the emotional aftermath of the defeat in visceral terms. "I felt a bit sick at the end of the game," he admitted. "I've had that feeling. The gray sky looks like it's coming down on you. There's this eerie feeling in the stadium. You look around, and it's only half full. Everyone's gone, and the people who are still there are looking for a bit of blood." It was a striking description, one that captured not just defeat, but the psychological weight that comes with leading England. Twickenham, often a fortress when momentum is positive, can quickly feel unforgiving when performances unravel. Jones understands that better than most. During his 7 years at the helm, he guided England to 6 Nations titles, a Grand Slam, and a Rugby World Cup final. But he also endured heavy criticism, inconsistent campaigns, and the relentless scrutiny that accompanies the role. He spoke candidly about England's unique sporting culture and the expectations attached to the shirt. "I have an affection for England," he said, "but as an Australian, we have a funny relationship with the Palms, don't we? The rivalry may carry humor, but the pressure is real." England head coaches are rarely afforded long periods of grace. Success must be sustained, and defeats, especially heavy ones to Ireland, are dissected ruthlessly. That tactical precision from Ireland Jones did not limit his reflections to emotion alone. He also offered a sharp tactical analysis of why Ireland dominated the contest. Central to his breakdown was Andy Farrell's management of scrum half Jamison Gibson-Park. "I thought Andy Farrell's management of Jamison Gibson-Park was outstanding," Jones said. "Against Italy, he put him on the bench, played 30 minutes, increased the tempo of the game, and he looked sharp right from the start." That strategic rotation proved significant. By limiting Gibson-Park's workload the previous week, Farrell ensured his scrum half arrived at Twickenham fresh and primed to dictate tempo. With quick ball at his disposal, Gibson-Park accelerated Ireland's attack, repeatedly challenging England's defensive alignment. Jones highlighted how Ireland's attacking structure placed relentless pressure on England's decision-makers. "They attacked a lot flatter, a lot more off 9, he explained. "You think of the number of times that Jack Crowley touched the ball? It wasn't a lot. They took that issue out of the 10. Rather than funneling play through the fly-half channel, Ireland operated closer to the gain line, frequently attacking directly from the base of rucks. This compressed England's defensive spacing and forced split-second choices. When defenses are confronted with flat, fast ball, hesitation becomes costly." Jones referenced Caelan-Doris line break as a prime example. A sequence of long pass followed by short pass, exploiting a defender who failed to fill the inside channel. "You saw that a couple of times," he said. "It had an effect on the game." Ireland's approach was both subtle and devastating. By increasing speed at the ruck and minimizing lateral drift, they stretched England's defensive cohesion. Each rapid, recycle-tested communication and composure, fastball, flat lines, fractured defense. At the heart of Jones' assessment was the importance of ruck speed. Modern test rugby is often dictated by who wins the collision and how quickly possession can be recycled. Ireland dominated that contest. Fastball meant England's defensive line had less time to reset. Flat attacking shapes meant defenders were repeatedly caught between stepping in and drifting wide. Over 80 minutes, those marginal stresses accumulate. Jones observed that England's defenders were asked to make an unusual volume of decisions under pressure, and inevitably, errors crept in. The margin of defeat reflected not just isolated mistakes, but systemic strain. Ireland's execution amplified every hesitation that it was, in Jones' words, a really interesting game from a tactical standpoint. A study in how tempo and clarity can dismantle structure. The emotional control question, one of the more contentious narratives following the defeat, concerned England's perceived work ethic. Critics questioned their energy and intensity, particularly when the game began slipping away. Jones, however, rejected the idea that effort was the core issue. "I was watching the Gold Coast Titans play against the Melbourne Storm in a preseason rugby league game," he said. "Everything that went well for the Titans, you got 13 players slapping, yahooing. But to do that for a whole season, do that for 4 games, and do that when the game's going against you is difficult." He drew a clear distinction between visible enthusiasm and sustained resilience. You look at England, and it looks like they've gone from the hardest working team to not one of the hardest working teams, he said. But the problem's not their effort, it's their emotional control. That assessment cuts deeper than surface-level criticism. Emotional control encompasses composure under scoreboard pressure, clarity in decision-making, and collective belief when momentum shifts. When teams lose emotional equilibrium, discipline falters, communication fragments, and defensive cohesion erodes. Jones suggested that England's struggles may stem from that internal dynamic rather than simple physical output. "What does that come to?" he asked rhetorically. "It can come down to preparation. It can come down to leadership on the field. It can come down to 1 or 2 players not particularly buying into the team." He did not accuse. He hypothesized. But the implication was clear. Elite rugby demands mental consistency as much as physical intensity. That pressure returns for Borthwick. For Steve Borthwick, the defeat reopens uncomfortable conversations. The 12-match winning streak that preceded Scotland's victory had begun to quieten doubters. Systems looked clearer. Selection felt settled. Results were arriving. 2 losses later, the scrutiny returns. That is the paradox of international coaching. Momentum can evaporate within a fortnight. Expectations, once recalibrated upward, become unforgiving. Jones' comments were not a direct critique of Borthwick, but rather an acknowledgement of the precariousness of the role. He has lived that reality himself. England supporters crave not only victories, but identity, a recognizable style built on physical dominance and tactical authority. Against Ireland, that identity appeared blurred. The gain line was lost too frequently. Defensive edges were compromised. Emotional steadiness wavered as Ireland's pressure mounted. Lessons beyond the scoreboard. What made Jones' analysis compelling was its balance. He did not sensationalize the defeat, nor did he excuse it. Instead, he contextualized it within the broader demands of elite coaching. Ireland's performance was not accidental. It was the product of strategic selection, tempo management, and psychological readiness. England's shortcomings were not about laziness, but about composure and alignment. The difference between the sides lay in clarity. Clarity of plan, clarity of execution, and clarity under stress. Jones' reflections serve as both warning and opportunity. Emotional control can be rebuilt. Tactical adjustments can be made. Momentum can shift again. But in the unforgiving theater of the Six Nations, time is limited. The road ahead, with the title race narrowing and France emerging as frontrunners, England must regroup quickly. The margin for error has evaporated. Leadership, both from coaches and senior players, will be pivotal. Jones' description of that post-defeat emptiness, the half-full stadium, the lingering scrutiny, resonates because it is universal in elite sport. Every coach eventually confronts that moment. What separates enduring teams from fading ones is how they respond.